Hey, this is Mike Ryan with Right with God Ministries. Check us out at RightWithGod.Life. Title of the message today is Can Christians Sin as Much as They Want to and Go to Heaven? All right, let's just clear this up. Every person sins as much as they want to. Every person. Every person. Let that sink in. You sin as much as you want to. Okay? That doesn't make you any more righteous or less righteous than anybody else. Okay? The only person who has never sinned is Jesus. Hebrews 4 verse 15. We don't have a high priest who can't sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. 1 Peter 2:22. Jesus, who did not sin, neither was guile found in his mouth. 1 John 3:5. In him is no sin. Jesus is the only person who does not sin as much as they want to. Jesus is the only human being alive who is not living in sin or who didn't live in sin. If you are a human being, if you have a heart, every single day you sin continually, you sin as much as you want to. So let's just get this mentality of Christians can sin as much as they want to and go to heaven. Every human being sins as much as they want to. It doesn't matter whether you're a pastor or a deacon or a soccer mom, or you're 15 years old, or a drug dealer, or a rapist. Everyone sins as much as they want to. And this is a common thing that will happen and come from when the gospel of grace is preached. You know, Paul had to deal with this in Romans chapter 6, verse 1, because the chapter before, he's talking about how where sin abounds, grace abounds even more. We're not worried about sin because God's grace is what we have big eyes for. So he gets accused from people because he preached the gospel of grace all the time. And he say, what shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin so that grace can abound? And of course he says, absolutely not. But he preaches grace so much and he anticipates how people respond to him that he's saying, look, I know people say, shall we continue in sin? Because he preaches grace so much. And that's the question you hear from a lot of people who are against grace. We have to understand that we shouldn't keep on sinning. We shouldn't rather not care about how we live, but for the right reasons. Okay, not because God's going to throw you away or God's going to be done with you. That's not the case. But you need to know that grace abounds with you even when you do struggle, even when you fail. God's love never leaves you. All right. And again, Paul was constantly accused. This is the gospel, and you don't hear it. The unconditional love of God, that no matter what you do, in Romans chapter 3, verse 8, and why not say, let us do evil that good may come. Let us do evil that good may come. In other words, let's just sin all we want to, because grace and grace and grace and grace and grace, that's all I hear. That's pretty much what Paul was hearing from people. And he says, as we slanderously are reported to affirm that we say. As we slanderously were reported as some affirm that we say. When you preach grace with somebody, when you hear the message of grace, it's supposed to change your life. And opponents will say, oh, you could just say God's love, his grace will never leave you. And somebody will just say, oh, you're just saying that you could just live however way you want to and it's okay and you'll go to heaven. That's exactly what Paul was hearing when he preached the gospel. Now, how many times do people go to church and come away saying, wow, I felt like that preacher was saying I could live any way I want to and be saved? If people aren't saying that, then maybe we're not preaching the gospel the way Paul preached it, the way Jesus gave it to him on purpose. All right? It's so rampant. I don't want you to think that way. We're teaching grace that it's saying that people can sin as much as they want to. If you knew God would never leave you, I'll ask you a question, and I ask this to people all the time when they inbox me and message me. If you knew God would never leave you, if you knew God would never forsake you, no matter how you lived your life, would you want to live your life full of sin every single day and just no limit, no filter, just do what you want? That's I asked him, was that what you would do? So then the question is, what's your motive then? Is your motive for living right with God because you think he's a hard master and he's gonna throw you in hell? Our words kind of reveal your heart. When a father looks at their child and says, I love you no matter what. Even if you go to prison, if you commit a crime, I will love you. Is that father giving permission for their child to commit a crime? Are they advocating for criminal behavior? No. They're saying, I love you. I love you. Okay? So let's go back to the title of this message. Can Christians sin as much as they want to and go to heaven? Again, no one is righteous. Everyone is sinning every single day. Everyone is sinning every single day. To say, oh, well, you're allowing people to just sin and go to heaven. That's you. If you're saying that and you're angry, that's you. But you know who wants to hear this? You know who's going to be encouraged when you realize, man, I do sin every day and I hate it. And I want God to approve of me. And I just wish he would approve of me. And I wish I could be different, because then maybe if I could stop doing this thing or thinking like that, God would approve of me. He already does approve of you. That's the good news. That's the good news. Let me give you these 2 key verses, all right? And we're going to close. 2 key verses. Romans chapter 5, verse 19. Okay? And Acts chapter 13, verse 38. Let's go. All right? Romans chapter 5, verse 19. For as by one man's disobedience, many were made sinners. Okay? So by Adam's disobedience, we all were made sinners. Romans 5 teaches that. Adam's mistake made everybody be born into sin. Okay? So for as by one man's disobedience, many were made sinners, whether you like it or not. You sin because you're a sinner. You're not a sinner because you sin. You were made that way. So also by one man's obedience, many will be made righteous. You are righteous. You are right with God, not by your obedience and not by your disobedience. It's the obedience of one man. That's the only way you can have security. Think about it. How can you have eternal security and know that God will never leave you or forsake you if the covenant is based on you? If the covenant is based on your behavior, you'll never have security. The covenant is based on the behavior of Jesus, and that's already done. He did it 2,000 years ago. Amen. And just like the high priest would walk into the holiest of holies and come out, and you knew that when he came out, everybody's waiting anxiously for him to come out because you know he's accepted. That's what happened when Jesus rose from the dead and he went to heaven, and it showed God accepted the sacrifice. His obedience makes you obedient. You just got to believe that. All right. Acts 13:38. Therefore, let it be known to you, brethren, that through this man is preached. Look, through this man is preached to you the forgiveness of sins. Through this man, forgiveness of sins comes through this man, Jesus Christ. And by him, everyone who believes is justified from some things, no, from all things, from which you could not be justified by the law of Moses, aka your own behavior, you keeping the spiritual law, moral laws. Through this man, it's through Jesus Christ, can you be forgiven of all your sin. It's by him, everyone, it's by him alone. All right? So no. So yes, can Christians sin as much as they want to and go to heaven? Okay, yeah, heaven is not based upon the way you live. Heaven's based upon the way Christ lived, and it's a free gift. Now, should you sin and sin and sin with no care? Of course not. There's consequences for that. If you're unfaithful and you're cheating on your spouse, you're gonna have consequences for that. If you're you're lying all the time, people aren't gonna trust you. You can damage your Christian witness. You can damage your testimony. Should you do those things? No, but not because God's gonna leave you. There are people who aren't even believers who are more moral and sensible. It's about living wisely. You don't make certain choices because they're gonna catch up to you, right? But don't ever think that it's I've got to live right or I won't go to heaven. No. Heaven has already been secured. Your right standing with God has been secured. So enjoy it. Amen. God bless you.